Michael, you have a major program coming up, a major showing. Tell us about it.
Yes, well, after I finished making the painting Sustainability, which is 24 feet long, I decided to make a series of paintings to help bring attention to threats to the great San Francisco Bay. And right now, there is a new significant threat. Two companies, one is Cargill from Minnesota, the other one is DMB from Arizona. The two companies have decided to take a piece of vital wetlands on the shores of Redwood City and build a 1,200 home complex. And in this world, you're not allowed to take wetland. That threat has motivated me to make a series of paintings to bring attention to that threat. And I'm extremely happy that, and I've never shown in a cafe, but Cafe Borrone in Menlo Park, right between Redwood City and Palo Alto, is one of the hottest spots on the San Francisco Peninsula. And I have an art show that started April 15th and runs until May 27th.
Now, this is right next door to Kepler's bookstore, which is
Oh,
very
yeah.
well known in the area.
Oh, yes, it's the best bookstore around here. And I hope everyone frequents it, because in this day and age with electronic books and Amazon, it's a struggle for local bookstores to keep providing us the wonderful services they are providing.
All right, so how did you arrange this to put your exhibition in Verone's?
Well, I'm very lucky, extremely lucky. A woman from Atherton, which is right next to Menlo Park and Redwood City and Palo Alto, she had seen my work, and she knew Roy Borrone, who owns Borrone's Cafe. And by the way, he has 50 employees for this cafe. I mean, to give you an idea of the magnitude.
Yeah.
Yes, she decided she wanted my art to be in his cafe, and she knew I was making art about bringing attention to this threat. And she called Roy Borrone, and she said, Michael is an outstanding artist, trust me. And anyway, Roy called me, I sent him a couple of photos, and he said, Michael, somebody else is scheduled to go ahead of you, but I'll bump that person. And I said, no. And I waited, and then we just brought the artwork in recently.
Excellent. All right, what we want to do is we're going to take a look. We're going to start by looking at Borrone's Cafe, and then we're going to go inside, because these paintings are already hung now. Isn't that true? Okay.
Yes.
So we already have a painting up here. Why don't you tell us about it?
Okay, this is a painting I made a few years ago, and now climate change is a threat to the San Francisco Bay, and this painting is called Climate Change for the Wealthy.
Uh-huh. What distinguishes wealthy from middle of the road or poor?
Wealthy is the one percenters,
Okay.
where money, to an extent, is no concern to them unless they want to buy another state or, okay. And, all right.
Okay, good. All right. So shall we go ahead and run through a few more
Sure.
of these and
Sure.
get some idea, because this is what we want to see of what's going to be there, and encourage people to go.
Okay, this painting is, it gives and gives and gives the San Francisco Bay. And I made it to try to help everyone who lives around this great bay, as well as people who live around other great waterways, to try to remember what a bay gives us. And the San Francisco Bay not only gives us beauty, the opportunity for water sports and other things, but it also helps our economy. It brings people here to live and work. It brings companies here. It brings millions of tourists. this is a Republican issue. You know, Republicans are into business, making business. Taking good care of your bay is good for business. Okay.
Okay. Well, let's go to another one as we can, and certainly we can chat. And oh, here's one now.
All right. On this particular art show, I've teamed up with an 86-year-old artist named Harry Cohen, and I think this might be called Bay 3 of his set. And Harry lives up in Marin, and what we would say the Marin part of the San Francisco Bay. And Harry is also very concerned with threats to the bay. And so we have 4 paintings of his in this art exhibition.
Okay. All right. What do we got here?
Well, yeah, one needs a little help here.
All right.
There are 3 women who founded the Save the Bay Foundation 50 years ago. One of them is still living. And I think it's appropriate to think of them as the 3 graces of the San Francisco Bay. And now that Cargill and DMB is threatening to build this gigantic, it's basically a small city on the San Francisco Bay. And God, what's it going to do to the roads, the supply of water here, and so many other things? I decided to make a painting called Threat to the 3 Graces of the San Francisco Bay. And we don't have the painting up, but I decided to paint the 3 women, the 3 graces, as if they were part of the water. And that was a little tricky, to say the least. And I worked to have a table, like they were sitting in bed. And by the way, you can see the headboard, the thing they're leaning against is the headboard of a bed. And it's the Golden Gate Bridge. And when you look to the right down below, that's 2 legs. Somebody is lying on their back, and they're kicking up a table. See the red table being kicked up? And on that table is a plate with a steak. And I put a steak, medium rare steak, because to me that symbolizes the wetland. So the legs are Cargill and DMB from Arizona. And then there's this key with the letters DMB on it. You know, that's the developer.
I can see that, yeah.
And the key is attached to the table, and it's yanking the table and stretching it. You know, I'm trying to show that those 2 companies are upsetting the status quo, the nice existence of the Bay right now, and threatening the 3 graces.
Let's stay on that subject for a minute. We've got a number of issues here. A small city requires water. Water, you take away from the bay, but now you need fresh water for drinking. What's the plan related to that?
Well, there's a lot of plans and no plan. The developer cannot go forward until they can secure water for the people who live in the area. And what they've tried to do is, well, let me back up. The people of San Francisco, San Mateo, Palo Alto, Atherton, maybe San Jose, we get the finest water in the world, and it comes from the Sierra Mountain.
It goes into Hetch Hetchy.
Yes, and then it comes here. Well, the developer is trying to get rights to that water so that they can tap into it. And none of these other cities are going to give up their rights because this is such a precious commodity. And so now there's talk about grabbing some of the water from the Delta area. You know, this is not good water.
Right.
And And they're talking about bringing that water in and having it shared among the people of San Francisco, San Mateo, Palo Alto. We're going to share this second-rate water. And
I mean, there's a natural processing that has to happen. In fact, a mechanical processing or chemical processing in order to convert this for pure drinking water. Is that true?
yes, they're going to have to do more work to that water than you have to do to the Sierra water. But at the end of the day, it'll probably never taste or smell as nicely as Hetchy water. And I would say this is an extremely difficult thing, getting the water, because none of us are going to tolerate Delta water. So then there is this other plan. The city will build a desalination plant
Mm-hmm.
on the bay. And that kind of plant that separates the salt from the water takes a lot of energy. It takes space. Where are you going to put this? On some more wetlands? And I would say the water that comes out of one of those plants is probably not as tasty and good as you're going to get from the mountains.
Okay, so there's a lot of problems in this, and water is one. I'm sure there's many more, but let's just address that issue. What I'd like to do is move on to the paintings that we have not seen.
Okay.
That are going to be at the cafe, and so that'll come up pretty quickly here. Here we go. Here's one of my favorites.
All right. This is the showcase painting at Borrone. It's 8 feet long, 5 feet high, and some people now are saying, for example, the other artist, Harry Cohen, who I know you know, Harry says, this is my best painting ever, which is a nice compliment.
Now, this would be bathtubs, bathtubs, bathtubs everywhere, but not a drop to drink.
Yes, yes, and that's, I think, from Coleridge, and the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which I don't think is being studied in school right now, but water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink.
Yes.
And
Okay.
that painting, it's sort of sarcastic in a way. I have this bathtub, which to me is symbolic of water, and it's also symbolic of Cargill. Cargill is in the agricultural and the food business, and they are the organization that harvests a lot of salt from the San Francisco Bay. And so you sometimes see in different places big piles of salt. That's Cargill's salt. And the wetlands right now are owned by Cargill. So Cargill wants DMB to build this complex on the salt lands. So there's so much salt involved, so I made a white tub.
Okay, that's the significance of that, yeah.
And could I say a couple more things?
Absolutely.
Now, I can't just paint a painting. I have to have a message. I don't know, I feel like if I'm going to spend my time painting, I want to...
You want to say something with it.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, you and I a little while ago talked about the water issue and the fact that a desalination plant might have to be built, okay? So I put a desalination plant in that bathtub painting. And the way I did it, I would never put buildings or anything. What I did was I had a bar coming out that was, there it is, on the left. The red symbolizes part of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I put a teapot up there.
Okay.
And look, underneath the teapot is a grill, because anytime you're cooking something, there's always a grill. And a little to the left of it is a large match. So the match symbolizes the fire, the heat. There's water in the teapot. And then, although you can't see it here, drops of water are coming out of the teapot. And they're nice, beautiful drops, healthy, nice. It goes into a funnel, goes up through a hose, and then in the center where the woman is drinking, out of that black line, that hose,
Yes.
is a drop, and you would expect it to be a nice drop of clear blue water. But instead, it's brown cookie stuff. Because, if Cargill and DMB get their way, the people of Redwood City, their water, not just the people in the new complex, but all the people are going to have to share the burden. They're going to wind up most likely drinking water that is less nice, doesn't smell as good, doesn't taste as good. And so I'm symbolizing and if you look in that lady's cup, that nude lady's cup, it's black.
Yeah, it's not what someone would want. I think there may be another painting. Let's see if we have another one coming up. But here we go.
Oh yes, this one, prior to me making Bathtubs Everywhere, this people said was my best painting, and it's the beginning after the end, and it's 5'6", and I had the idea that, if we weren't careful with what we were doing, if we reduced regulations and had presidents and whatever that were not good presidents, whatever, our civilization would deteriorate and possibly wind up collapsing.
Oh, so what's this one called again?
The beginning after the end.
The beginning after the end.
And then I have envisioned what would happen if all of us went away 4 million years ago. A new civilization would arrive, and what would they find? What art would they find on our walls, and what art would they paint on top of it? So that's what that painting is.
It's an overlay, sure. I think we have at least one that I know about. It's the outside of the museum, the cafe itself. And so we'll probably pull that up in a second. So we have a great diversity here in painting. Here we go. Here's a Cafe Borrone.
Yes, that's the front of his cafe, and we're having an art reception there on Tuesday, April 24th.
Okay, all right.
And Save the Bay folks are coming to it, Sierra Club, the Audubon Society, and a lot of other folks who like art are coming to it. And Harry and I are going to say hello to everyone briefly and have an opportunity to meet.
Well, one of the things I think is remarkable that you make one of each, and that's it. Your master is 6 foot long, 5 feet high, 10 feet long, 6 foot high, and so forth. But you're going to provide an opportunity through a gentleman that we're going to have on in a minute or so, so they can have a share of this, so that they can participate and get a smaller painting that is virtually a replica, but in much smaller form.
A print. We're now starting to make 200 prints of my paintings, and they'll all be signed, 200 and no more. And I would like to say, when I make these paintings, I only am willing to sell a few of them, because it has something to do with, I have this egotistic belief that as time goes by, the value of them, as I become better known, etc., will go up and up and up, and I'd like to leave those paintings to my children. So I don't even make all my paintings available for sale. But now what we're doing is we're going to make...
And this is not a matter of selling. This is a matter of providing an opportunity for people to take advantage of this.
Oh, yes. And so now I'm bringing out prints of my paintings, and we've decided on making only 200, and when they get put together, the print is made by Wemoth, then I sit down in the afternoon and I write Michael, Killen, next one.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Well, original prints are nothing brand new, and that's been going on for some time. But I think it's a wonderful way for people to have the art in their home, share the art, and even though it's not this enormous painting, in fact, few people would have the availability of doing that. So what I want to do is I want to bring on Dan Ingerman. And so, Michael, thank you very much for your participation in the program.
You've been wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it's always fun to share a program with Michael, his ideas, his artistic developments, and so forth. And we're going to have Dan come in within about 10 seconds, and I think he's almost, well, here he is, Dan Ingerman.
Good to see you
All
again.
right, it's good to have you back. I want to talk a little bit about what is exactly behind us here. Tell us about this painting before we get into the other one.
Well, this painting is a replica of the large one. There's a lot of good materials that we can use, and the paintings are digitally shot, and we take that digital format and print it on our large format printers. It's a reduced down size, and then in this particular case, it's mounted with a Velcro to a Velcro receptive surface.
And so it's wonderful for displaying and so forth. Now, this was 24 feet. How large is it now? How much did you?
It's 10 feet now because
10
it's on a 10-feet wall. And the beauty of this is the whole wall condenses down into a shipping case, and the painting rolls up and goes into a tube.
Fortunately, that's why we can have it as our set. And
Right.
it's our primary piece on the set. There's no question about it. Now, we're going to look at two of the things that you've done. Michael was just talking about printing a couple of hundred. So we're going to look at two paintings that we've actually seen now on the video, and we'll probably put them up here as soon as we get in focus so we can look at them again. And what you have done with this is an amazing thing. If I didn't know better, I would think that the paintings that we'll be looking at are in fact the originals, but they're not. They're taken from the original. And explain the processing that you've gone into related to getting this.
Well, just like with the large one, they're shot digitally, and we take the digital format. There's many different materials we can print on depending on what the final application is. In this case, they're printed on a synthetic canvas, and the canvas is then stretched around stretcher bars. And in this case, this one's reduced down to 24 by 30. So we stretch it around stretcher bars. It's sprayed with a sealant that helps protect it. And then we put the hangers on the back, and it can be displayed just like the original. You wouldn't know the difference.
No, and we didn't. In fact, that's why we actually, the shots that we saw earlier were photographs of the originals.
Of the original.
And now we're actually, these are here in the studio, as you can see, sitting right in front of us, and the two that Michael had just talked about a few minutes ago. So this part. Is this a process, is this a new process, or has it been around for a long time?
Well, the process has been around for a while. What's changed is the material and the inks, the stretching and the final fabrication of it has been around a long time. But the substrates have changed, the inks have changed. The colors
What have you done that is different than anyone else has done related to this?
Well, I wouldn't say what we've done is totally different, because obviously we're using existing technology, but we're using new technology where the inks are safe inks. These are latex inks as opposed to solvent inks, and we use, in some cases, we use biodegradable materials or recyclable materials. So that's really what the difference is.
And that's what the world really requires today.
And I think they're demanding it more and more. The prices have come down to where the recycled material is almost comparable in price, and it's more readily available. More companies are willing to manufacture it and develop it because more people are asking for it.
What would be let's step back a generation in materials. What would be the difference between the materials then and the materials you're using now?
Well, I think the materials then were more toxic. They were less concerned with what happened to them after they were done using them, so everything was more disposable. Nowadays, with landfills filling up and the toxic chemicals and different things, people are more conscious about what they're making and what can be done with it, after they're done using it.
So what happens, it wasn't the paintings that created the problem, it was the paints and the solvents and so forth, right, that when they were done with the painting, that was a real problem.
Because the chemicals have to go somewhere when you're done and you dispose of them. There was a lot of wastage, and it seeped into the land, it went into the water. So it became a concern, and as more and more people became aware of it, there was more, movement toward making those changes.
Would you say that this was a large quantity of wasted material when this used to happen, or material that they just dumped?
Oh, absolutely. And also as labor became more expensive, items also became disposable, where instead of paying someone to fix it, it was easier to throw it out and cheaper to throw it out and buy a new one. So that mentality came around, and people would say, well, it's broken, let's just run down, and get a new one. So, that mentality is starting to change also. But again, it takes pressure on the companies, whereas they develop new things, it should be compatible with what's out there and not, a different circuit board that will no longer fit in your computer. Or there's a lot of changes still to be made.
I'm sure we're just really getting going in this, and that's what this sustainability is all about. Getting something that is usable from creativity, but then you must sustain and have it go so it's not going to pollute the environment and so forth. Dan, it's been a pleasure having you.
It's great seeing you again.
And my guests have been Dan Ingerman and Michael Killen.
Thank you.